Yo, what up? How's it going? And welcome back for another video. Today's video, we're going to be doing a Season 10 EKKO guide. So this video is designed that if you don't know how to play EKKO very well, you're a beginner to the champion, this will give you everything you need, as well as if you already know how to play the champion, you already know kind of how to play the jungle, then what this guide will give you is how to optimize your gameplay for Season 10 on EKKO. So with that out of the way, let's get right into the video. Alright, so before you ever load into the game, first thing we got to talk about is your rune setup. So the first rune setup we're going to talk about is going to be the more of the burst style assassin setup for EKKO. There are some other setups we're not going to talk too much about, but I'll briefly touch on them, but I won't have any of that stuff up on the screen, such as the tank conquer build EKKO. We'll talk about it, but the main thing we're going to talk about is this kind of burst build, which is going to be your bread and butter, which is going to be good in most situations. And playing EKKO, most of the time you'll be playing him as an assassin, but you can play it more of a bruiser type setup, and we'll talk about that as well. But the first thing we're talking about is taking your domination tree. So the keystone is going to be electrocute. It's the most consistent form of damage upon EKKO's kit. I tend to favor recommending electrocute over Dark Harvest, which is the other kind of burst assassin type build. I find it more consistent overall as a consistent source of damage throughout the entire game, whereas Dark Harvest is consistent in a different way, is that it'll always give you execute damage, but it doesn't always give you the upfront damage where your teammates can then finish off people. I much prefer electrocute most of the time over Dark Harvest on burst assassins. But you can take either one of those, it's fine. That isn't the crucial part of the setup. After that, sudden impact is good. On the second row, we have sudden impact, but also cheap shot is pretty decent, as your Q will apply cheap shot every time you hit it, and especially if you're going that tankier style build where you're building like Leandries and Frozen Fist, then cheap shot's going to be good as well. So either of those are fine. Do not take Taste of Blood. That is more of a laning keystone or laning rune. As for your third row, Eyeball Collection is going to be fine. You can take either of the other two depending on what trinket you're going to prioritize through the game. Usually when you're a jungler, you'll switch over to Sweeper a lot of the time, and so Zombie Ward can be efficient. But if you're at low elo or you're a beginner player, then Eyeball Collection is going to be your best bet, or the Ghost Portal is going to be better, because people just really don't ward paths that you're going to go through, and if you don't really know how to sweep very well and you're not just accustomed to where wards are supposed to be, then that's going to be difficult for you to stack up your zombie ward. So any of those are fine in that row. Now we're in the bottom row of the domination tree. This one's really important. Taking Ravenous Hunter is very, very, very important to EKKO's kit. So even if you're going the tank style build or whatever type of build you're going, Ravenous Hunter is going to be very important to EKKO's kit, as it gives you so much sustain, especially if you're having to fight bruisers and stuff like that. Helps you out so much with 1v1s. You'll play games, you'll look at the end of the game if your game goes long, and you'll see 10,000 healing from your Ravenous Hunter. That's where you don't have to build other healing items on the champion, unless you're going that Bruiser type build. You can build some other healing items. But as long as you have Ravenous Hunter, you don't ever have to worry about trying to build a Gunblade or something like that, which is a kind of poorly optimized item for EKKO. You won't ever have to worry about doing that as long as you have this Ravenous Hunter. It'll keep you really topped off and all that good stuff. And that's why it's so good with this setup. As for your secondary runes, you can take a lot of different things. On this screen right here, I just have Nimbus Cloak, Transcendence. Transcendence is so good on EKKO because you can just get that 40% CDR. When they made a couple changes to EKKO a couple patches ago, they made his ult cooldown reduced. So once you have 40% CDR, you can actually get 2 ults off in a long, extended fight, which is pretty crazy. So taking that Transcendence rune is pretty nice for that. If you don't want to take Transcendence, Celerity is okay, as it synergizes with some of EKKO's kit with his passive, giving him his additional movement speed, and then all the slows you have built into your kit just helps you stick a little bit more. I don't really necessarily favor that much. And then I just have Nimbus Cloak on here. I love Nimbus Cloak. I love the new Nimbus Cloak, so I try to fit it in on rune setups for every champion right now. But it's pretty decent, whenever you're going in for some kills, you can blue smite them or red smite them, gives you that burst of movement speed, helps your chase down a little bit better. I just really like the rune, but again, these secondary runes are not necessary for EKKO's success. If you're going to take the precision tree setup, which we're going to talk briefly about in a second, then the secondary runes are very important, as you do want Ravenous Hunter on your secondary runes. So other than that, you can take Precision and take Triumph Coup de Grace. It's pretty decent on EKKO. You get extra healing in fights. It's pretty nice. An extra gold income, an extra execute damage is nice. You can also just take Inspiration and take the free boots or the free stopwatch, as you will be building Zanyas on a lot of EKKO's builds. So you can either take free boots, free Zanyas. That's a good setup. and then just take the additional cooldown reduction from Cosmic Insight is also fine as well. Additionally, I didn't talk about this, but if you wanted to, it's kind of a niche thing. I really think Ravenous Hunter is very core to EKKO's kit. You could take Ultimate Hunter, as in the late game you will consistently be able to ult twice. That can be an avenue, but I do think it's harder to just get to that late game to where that actually matters. Where you have 40% CDR and then you have that Ultimate Hunter setup. I think it's just more important to have Ravenous Hunter to get that additional healing in the early mid game, and then also it's just huge in the late game fights as well. So I think that's super important. As for your stat runes, pretty standard for junglers. You'll take the attack speed, you'll take the adaptive damage, and you'll take the armor. Again, you can take the AP or the MR runes if there's 4 AP options on the enemy team. It's going to hurt your health a little bit on your first clear, but that's a viable option. You can also just not take the attack speed runes and take the double adaptive damage, but strongly recommend taking attack speed runes as it helps with your early trading, and it also helps with your jungle clear, especially on single target camps that you'll be doing at your second clear. Alright, so now we're going to talk just a little bit about that tank setup. I love the tank setup, but I do not think it's very optimal. It's optimal if you're against other bruisers, but if you're against a lot of squishy champions, which if you're playing normals or you're playing kind of low elo games, most of your games are going to have tons of squishies in them. So, or really at any elo, just everybody plays carries. So I really don't recommend taking the tank setup in every game. I'm a huge tank EKKO player. If I play EKKO, I love playing the Bruiser EKKO style build, but it's semi suboptimal. But you can take, so with the tank setup, you just take your Conqueror, you get that additional healing. The rest of the runes in that setup don't matter all that much. Triumph, Coup de Grace is great, but the rest of those runes don't matter all that much. And then you just take secondary runes. You take Cheap Shot and Ravenous Hunter, or you take Sudden Impact and Ravenous Hunter. And the Conqueror stack with your Ravenous Hunter just gives you so much healing. You'll have more of a Bruiser type item setup, so you can just last so long in fights and just stall out time. I love that build because I think I do so much for my team. If I'm not one-shotting people, then I love going that build. And you're like a pseudo frontliner. It's weird. You're like not even that tanky, but you'll last as long as like a Maokai in a fight while still doing some pretty decent damage. And if you end up fighting another tank, you just shred them. You just shred them down. But again, I'm not recommending that build. So that's why we're mainly talking about the assassin build. All right, with our build out of the way, let's get right into the items. All right, we have your items pulled up right here. And so our core build is going to be our Blue Smite with our runic echoes. You can do like a Cinder Hulk setup if you really want to, but getting that cooldown reduction is so much more important, even if you're going the tanky style build. Just runic echoes is so much better, even as echoes name in it. So it gives you that early cooldown reduction. It's one of the most gold efficient items in the game. The second rune setup, well, I didn't talk much about why we take Blue Smite. Blue Smite just helps so much with Echo's kit for chase down. You can for sure just take Red Smite as well if you think you're going to have to duel a lot of people, especially in the early game. You can take Red Smite, but taking that Blue Smite a lot of times will guarantee your stun landing or guarantee your Q pullback actually applying the second hit, because a lot of times people can just walk out of it even though they're already slowed. Giving them that additional slow will help get that Q pullback, or will get that W stun on top of them. So the second item we have in our core build is our proto belt. I almost said GLP. Is our proto belt. So you may be asking yourself, why proto belt? Because there's a lot of items that you can build second on EKKO. You can build Zanya second on EKKO. You can build you can build a couple other different items on EKKO's second item, Lichbane, stuff like that. But the key thing that's very important is look how cheap proto belt is. Look how cheap proto belt is. It's the same cost as your jungle item and gives you another additional 10% cooldown reduction and then a ton of AP in that active that synergizes so well with EKKO's kit, which you use your E and then you can close the gap with your proto belt, apply the damage, and apply your E damage. So it is so good for a lot of outplay situations, and just how gold efficient it is for the stats that you want on EKKO. And by the time you have it built, you might be level 10 by then. Probably you'll have it a little bit before, but you'll build this item, then you get level 10, then you'll have 30% cooldown reduction already on a mid-game EKKO. It's actually super powerful, super cheap build, 5,000 gold total to get these two items. Obviously you got to factor in your boots, but 5,000 gold total to get these items is pretty good. Additionally, after that, we'll talk about some solid item choices in a second, but you could totally just build Zanya second. It's a highly gold efficient item. Lichbane second is pretty tough unless you're snowballing really hard, because you're still going to be super squishy, as well as that's a really expensive item. in terms of a second item. So that's why I don't have it on the core build for the second item as Lich Bane. All right, our boot setup right here, we have our magic penetration boots. So sorcerer boots are great on Echo, especially if you want to go full one-shot. That's going to be your best bet. Additionally, we have our 2 other boot options. Tenacity boots are amazing. You know how much I love tenacity if you've seen any of my guides. Tenacity boots are great on Echo. You want to be able to, since you're a melee assassin, you want to be able to, if you get caught down, you get out of your tenacity so you can get out of the CC so you can ult. A lot of times it feels so bad whenever you hold on to your ult on Echo and you're like stuck in a Morgana binding, or stuck in a Morgana, binding, and then she ults and the ult's quick and you're sitting there just pressing your R. And a lot of times you just need that extra tenacity that would allow you to ult out of her ultimate and get you out of harm's way. So the Merc Treads are super great. And then again, tabbies, if there's full AD team or a lot of all their carries are auto attack based, then going for tabbies is going to help you out a little bit as well. So now let's talk about some solid item choices. So Zhonya's is good 99% of the time. Zhonya's just synergizes so well with Echo's kit. It's also a very cheap item. You can go this third item, you can go the second item. Very, very cheap item, and and also gives you, it synergizes with everything about Echo's kit. It gives you cooldown reduction, so it gets you to that 40% cooldown reduction, which is so great on Echo's new ultimate. After its cooldown got taken down a little bit, it's so great on that. And as well as what you can do with your Zhonya's, you can do a lot of interesting plays where you drop your W on the ground where you're at. Maybe you're in a chaotic fight and everybody's focusing you. You drop your W where you're at, you Zhonya's. And when you come out of your Zhonya's, it'll apply the stun if they stay on top of you. Or you can Zhonya's, and then by the time your Zhonya's comes out, your Ghost of Echo's ultimate will be on top of you now, and then you can just ult in place and use it as damage for anybody who's trying to execute you. So it can be pretty decent. As well as it just gives you so much solid. As I said before, even if you're going that assassin build, you can run Echo as like a pseudo frontliner. You go in, you get your big stun on the ground, you get a big shield, you do a lot of damage, you Zhonya's. They're still waiting for you to get a Zhonya's. They deal a little bit of damage to you again, you ult, you deal a ton of damage to them, and all that time you just wasted about 12 seconds of the enemy's time while hopefully your team was doing something else, maybe on the other side of the map, or maybe on maybe they're fighting with you and you can just stall out so much time with that. Okay, some other solid item choice. If you're going that bursty one-shot build, then our Lich Bane is going to be super good. You can fit this build item in wherever you want to the build, but it's going to be super good. Synergizes with your E, all that good stuff. Death Cap, obviously, if we're going for that full tank build. Remember that, that full damage build. Remember that Rabadons will scale with your shield. So it will scale with your shield, scales with AP, as well as your ultimate healing and damage will scale with AP. So going that full AP build, the actual building maximum AP rather than just some solid AP items, will actually synergize pretty well with your kit. We have Liandry's right here. Liandry's is one of the most busted items in the entire game. Maybe by the time you watch this video, it will be nerfed, but it's been a menace for, almost a year now. So I don't know if it'll get nerfed, but it's one of the best items in the game for champions that can use it. So if you're going, especially if you're going that tanky build, it's going to synergize super well with all of your items. And then as well as if you're not going that tanky build, your Q, if you apply it on multiple enemies, your Q will apply Liandry's effect. Liandry's effect will always apply, obviously. But the Liandry's effect doubles if you are CCing them. And your Q will apply enough CC that will give you the Liandry's burn, give you the Liandry's double burn effect. As well as on Echo, most of the time you're fighting for a very long time, so that additional 10% fighting power that you'll get from fighting over a long period of time from Liandry's can be really, really powerful on the tank build and on the AP build. And now we have, at the end, we have Iceborne Gauntlet, or Frozen Fist, as a lot of people like to call it. Another very, very, very cheap item that is going to give you 20% cooldown reduction. So you can actually build this item second if you want to go that tankier build, and there's a lot of AD options on the enemy team. You can build the second even on like a pseudo AP Bruiser build or on the tank build, and then you can build Liandry's after that, and your Iceborne, every time you activate your Iceborne, will apply Liandry's burn. So going that Bruiser type build or going the AP build, you can actually fit this in your build to get some really, really, really early cooldown reduction. So for example, you could just build Runic Echoes, Iceborne, which now you'll have 30% cooldown reduction just from 2 items, and then you can maybe get Liandry Zhonya's. If you're going more of a Bruiser type build, and you have 30% cooldown reduction right when you build it, and then when you have Liandry Zhonya's, you'll have 40% cooldown reduction with that Liandry's burn and all the sticking power that Iceborne Gauntlet will give you. So it's actually pretty powerful if you want to go that type of setup. Some situational items we have here. We have Our Morellonomicon, obviously if there's a lot of healing champions, there's an Aatrox, a Draven, that type of stuff, Soraka on the enemy team, then that can be a viable option. It's definitely not a must on EKKO, but that is an option. We have our Void Staff, which is going to help you with taking down some tanks. There's a lot of big beefy boys on the enemy team, then sometimes that'll be a good option. But if you're going that Bruiser type build, Liandry's a lot of times will just do it for you. But especially with Conquer having the true damage taken off of it, then this can be very good if there's a lot of beefy boys on the enemy team. It's also a very cheap item. Additionally, we have our Banshee's Veil as another option. Gives you that cooldown reduction, gives you magic resist, and gives you that Banshee shield that everybody loves. That can be a very good option, especially if there's a lot of AP threats on the enemy team. You can actually build the double resist. You can build Zanya's Banshee's Veil, but it's going to take your damage quite down a bit, and it makes kind of like a pseudo Bruiser AP build without the health stats. So it is kind of a niche type item, but it is good if there's a lot of AP options on the enemy team, or if you're fine with functioning more as a Bruiser because maybe you're not the carry of your team's comp and stuff like that. All right, looking at our full build, right here I have the full one-shot build pulled up. And I also have the tanky sustain tank buster build if you want to go that build path. I know we didn't talk too much about it, but I'll have it pulled up for you. So the full AP one-shot will have our Sork boots, our Runic Echoes, our Proto Belts, our Zanyas, Lichbane, and Deathcap. That's going to be the maximum damage. You can switch out a couple of these items, obviously. You can switch out your Lichbane for Liandry's if you want to sustain a little bit longer, but this is the full one-shot, like you're going to one-combo the enemy. This is going to be your best bet. Late game, if you really want to, you can switch out that Proto Belt for something else. It's going to take your cooldown reduction down a little bit, down to 30, but 30% cooldown reduction is plenty much. You can switch it out for your Liandry's or something like that to get an additional damage, additional AP, additional health stats. Will be okay as well. And then late game, obviously when you're at 6 items, you can maybe switch out your boots for a movement speed item as well, to get yourself a little bit more bruisier and stuff like that. A good option to switch out on your boots would be something like a Deadman's to give you that extra tank stats, but you will lose your penetration on that build. But it's not very often you get to 6 items and then have to sell your boots for something, but that is an option. So the Tankier Sustain Tank Buster build, we have our Tenacity boots, which are going to be a must on this type of build because you just want to be constantly sticking to people. You have your Runic Echoes, which is still going to be what you want on the build. You have your Iceborne Gauntlet, which after you have that build, that'll give you 30% cooldown reduction. Liandry's will apply your Iceborne Gauntlet and your Q damage, so it'll give you tons of damage passively through that. And then we'll have our Zanya's Hourglass just to stall for more time. It's pretty crazy when you're running this build. And the last item, if you're going full Tank Buster, then we can build Void Staff here. But if you're not going full Tank Buster, there's a bunch of different types of items you can go there. You can go like a Deadman's, a Randuin's, a bunch of different types of tank items. If you're not having to go full Tank Buster, but you just want to stay alive as long as you can and stick to people and stall out time, then you can go a tanky item there rather than the Void Staff. But if you are fighting like 4 different tanks, and Void Staff's going to be pretty good there, as you will out-sustain them with the Conqueror setup, out-sustain tanks, and then be able to actually shred through them if they're itemizing versus you. All right, now let's talk about EKKO's abilities. So one of the key things you want to play around as EKKO is your EKKO passive. So EKKO has one of the 3-hit passives in the game. 3-hit passives are pretty OP as far as we can see. So the 3-hit passive, the way it works is after EKKO hits somebody with 3 abilities, so your Q will apply twice if you hit them with both sides of it. Once you hit them with 3 ability damage, very important, or 3 auto attacks, any of them combined. So if you E in, hit them with your Q, E in, hit them with your Q, hit them with your auto attack from your E, and then auto attack them again, it'll instantly apply. What it'll do is it'll give you a bonus damage. It looks kind of like Electrocute proc is the way it'll hit, and your Electrocute will proc off of that combo as well. That's why it's super good. And then you'll get some additional movement speed from that after you apply 3 hits. Additionally, you can utilize doing that by, you're running away from a fight, you attack somebody and then you throw your Q into them and you're running away. When the Q comes back to you, if it applies your passive, you'll get that additional movement speed while you're even running away. So that's a big thing to play around, especially when you're killing jungle camps. You want to make sure you get your 3rd proc on all the jungle camps where you do it. It applies for a little bit of time. I don't know the exact time that it lasts, but within a couple seconds, if you hit them 3 times with an ability, auto attack, or any combination of those, make sure it's a damaging ability, then you will get that additional movement speed and the additional damage. All right, your W is your Q. We got to talk about your Q first. Your Q is going to be your highest damaging ability, and it is more of the It's the only thing that's really super difficult to hit. Your W is going to be kind of difficult to hit in zone control, and learning how to use your W is going to be, use your W correctly is going to be something that takes a long time to learn. Actually utilizing it correctly takes a long time to learn, but the Q is, if you know how to use your Q right, then you're going to be set up a little bit more for success. And then after you learn how to use your Q and your E combo, then adding in your W to that is going to be nice. But your Q is going to be your highest damaging ability. So you slow out, you throw out a projectile in front of you. It's a skill shot. It's a skill shot. It's pretty wide. Once it hits an enemy, it'll slow down. So if an enemy is super close to you and you hit them, it won't go the full length that you'll see on your indicator. But if you don't hit them, then it will go the full length on the indicator and then slowly still move forward. But if you hit somebody earlier than that, then it'll start slowly moving at the time you hit your first enemy. So and minions count as enemies. So if you throw your Q at an enemy champion, they're within your Q range, but it hits a minion, it'll stop before it hits them if they're far enough away. It won't go the full distance. That's important to know. It'll do some damage and apply one part of your passive proc, and then when it comes back, it does additional damage, and it does additional damage on the way back, similar to kind of to Ari's Q. And it'll apply a slow on both sides of the Q, and will give you two sides of your passive proc. So you throw it out, it'll apply a slow to them, and then it'll come back to you. You want to use it in conjunction with your, or in combination with your E. You'll E forward and Q as you're about to finish your E animation, and it'll go forward to the target you're going to E. And it'll apply all three procs of your passive when you hit the E, hit the first part of your Q, and then auto attack again. It'll apply all three parts of your passive, and that's one of the combos that will show at the end of the game. Additionally, you can just E forward, hit them with the E first, and just throw your Q from point blank range. Apply that slow, and then keep hitting them down. So that's going to be your biggest damage ability. All right, your W is a huge area of effect, slow or stun. So you throw it on the ground. It's a very large area. Whenever you get into game, look at your indicator. You'll see the very large area around EKKO that you can actually throw it. And when you're going in for ganks, you can be super far away from them, and you want to throw it behind or you want to throw it where you think they're going to run once they see you, not really where you are at currently or where they are at right there. You have to do a little bit of predictive ability, and once you play a lot more, you'll get better at recognizing when should I do this, when should I do that, and it'll get a little bit easier to figure that out. But essentially what the ability does is you throw the circle on the ground where you want it to go. After a couple seconds, it'll activate. You'll see an indicator flying on top of it. It'll activate. Once it activates, it'll apply a slow in that area if any enemies are inside of it. But it's important to know, if EKKO is inside of that ability when it lands, or about a second after it lands, then it'll apply a stun to all other enemies inside of it. This applies to minions, this applies to jungle camps, this applies to champions. But it's important to know, if it lands and EKKO's not inside of it, it'll apply the slow, but if you get in there within about 1 second, then it will apply the stun afterwards. You can use this in combination with Zhonya's. You can throw down your W and then Zhonya's, and it'll apply. You can also use this in combination with your ultimate. You can put your W down where you're standing if you're running away from somebody, and then you run away, and then by the time it hits, if the enemy is inside of it, you can ult back and you'll land inside of the circle, stun them, and do a big burst of damage. So your W is one of the key abilities that you'll play around as EKKO. It's probably the hardest one to get used to get comfortable with. Where should I place this at what time, and when should I actually utilize it? It's a little bit difficult to learn at first, but after you have your EQ combo figured out, and then you can integrate your W in there, you'll see why EKKO is so strong and so powerful, and why you're having so much trouble fighting the enemy EKKO if they know how to do that themselves. All right, let's talk about your E. So your E is going to be a dash forward, so it has two sides of it. You dash forward, and then you'll see an auto attack indicator around your champion. The second part of it is another dash, and if an enemy is in that range, then you'll attack towards that enemy champion, applying one of your passive procs and doing like a sheen type damage. So your next auto will give you an additional damage, kind of like if you built the sheen. That's why sheen synergizes so well with EKKO's kit, is you'll get the sheen proc as well as the E proc. The E does also apply onto turrets, but this will be how you actually close the gap on a lot of people. You know, I'll show the combo at the end of the game, but you'll place your W on the ground, and then you'll E, Q, E, and you'll apply all 3 of your procs, and hopefully they're in your stun zone, and you get the stun. When I talked about the W, I didn't talk about, for whatever reason, I didn't talk about, you get a massive shield based off of your AP, and that's what helps you clear a lot of your jungle camps, as well as in fights. If you don't land the stun on your enemy, but you grab the shield on yourself before you actually go in to hit your combo, then it can be pretty successful. Wow, I just got a... That's funny. I just got a Twitch follower while I was recording this video, but I'm not streaming, so that's funny. Thank you for that. I didn't see the name, but it startled me. Anyways, so that's going to be those abilities. Now let's talk about your ultimate ability. So your ultimate ability is one of the big things around your kit. So you'll see a little ghost that is trailing EKKO. And so whenever you use your ultimate, you will teleport back to where your ghost is and heal for a certain percentage of damage you've taken in the last couple of seconds. So you'll, depending on what level it is, you'll heal for a certain percentage of the damage that you were taking. And then also you'll have a flat amount that you'll heal that's going to be a percentage of your maximum health, and it scales with AP. So it'll scale with AP. So you'll heal for a flat percentage of your health, and then you'll heal for your AP scaling or any damage you've taken in the past couple of seconds. So you can even use it before fights to get some health back. If you are at super late game and you know you have 30 seconds left before your ult comes up, but you can't recall, you can do that. That's not really a super consistent way to play, but it's going to heal you. And I'll show you some combos with that. If you place your W on the ground, you run away, then you ult back into it. And a lot of people will just not even see your ghost. They'll forget they're playing against an EKKO player, and then you'll look for some fatty damage to get back. Also, whenever you're new to playing EKKO, this can just be your get out of jail free card. So if you fly into an enemy team and you're like, oh, that was a mistake, and then ult right back out, it'll be your get out of jail free card. But you should be also looking to apply damage with it as well. So a lot of times, if you see a good fight, you can dance around the fight for a long time, and then when people don't notice, you'll just ult back down on the ground. It's kind of like Orianna's ball. A lot of times people don't recognize Orianna's ball sitting on the ground, and you can get a big combo. Because people don't notice. Similar things happen with EKKO's ultimate. Oh, hi there. This is me from the future. Sorry, I'm editing the video right now, and I just realized I didn't talk about your jungle path and your jungle start and how you actually function in a team fight in the later game. So let's talk about that real quick. So on EKKO, you're going to start Talisman. Always. You can do a weird machete thing, but I wouldn't do it. So you can start Talisman. You can either start on the red or blue buff. Doesn't matter which one you want to do. It's fine. But if you start on the red buff, after that, you want to do your Raptors. Raptors are EKKO's easiest camp to do. Whenever you're actually clearing the camp and you're getting used to it, what you want to do is you want to get close enough to the camp to where your Q will apply on all of the Raptors. So you'll drop your W down, you'll throw your Q out, your Q will go through. If you throw it into the center of the Raptors, it'll hit all of them. It'll rip back, and when it does, you can get your passive proc on the big Raptor, 3 of the small ones, and then once your next Q will come up, you can just kite the camp back through your Q, and your Q will finish off all the Raptors that you got the initial proc on, and you can finish off the big one and then kill the little ones after that. I didn't mention before that you want to start your W on your first clear, as it'll give you that big shield. Stun your camp for about 2.5 seconds, and it also gives you passive damage on your auto attacks once the camp is below a certain amount of health. It'll give you those passive procs, and it'll make it a little bit quicker. So you can start red buff, then do Raptors, and then you can actually do Wolves and then Blue, and that'll give you level 3. That is a 4 camp clear for EKKO, but that's going to give you a quicker level 4 when you reset your camps. But those are EKKO's easiest camps, are going to be Raptors, Wolves, and the 2 big buffs, obviously. Alternatively, you can do it reverse. You can do blue, wolves, raptors, red, and that'll also be a 4 camp level 3 clear. It'll be quicker level 4, a little bit slower level 3. Alternatively, you can also just do full red side clear, which is going to be our red buff, red buff Krugs, then Raptors will give you level 3. Oftentimes after that, you'll want to do your blue buff, as you'll be a little bit lower on mana by the time you get done with those things. But EKKO is pretty efficient at clearing that side of the map. Alternatively, you can also just do full blue side clear now, as in Season 10 you can do this. You can do full blue side clear. So that's adding your Gromp in there. EKKO isn't quite as efficient at doing Gromp, so you might end up smiting that camp. Get level 3 under full blue side, then do your red buff and look for a gank. The trouble with that clear is that you do want to have red buff before you start doing your gank, so it'll make it a 4 camp clear, and Gromp is a little bit less efficient of a camp for you to clear as EKKO. Okay, quickly let's talk about function in team fights. So I'll talk a little bit more about that when I'm showing combos at the end of the video. but function in team fights. If you're an assassin, then you got to be patient. You're not the primary engage. Your W can be really impactful in team fights. But if you're playing an assassin type build, you need to be a little bit patient. Go in as a secondary engage, one shot a carry, and then ult out of that bad boy. Or alternatively, you can stall a long time and use your ult for damage as you escape. Once you're passive and W a proc, then you can run back to your side of your team or away from the fight, and then ult back in because they won't see that like an Orianna ball sitting on the ground. People don't even notice EKKO's ghost. If you're playing that tank style build, you still want to be a secondary engage. EKKO's engage is super inconsistent unless you kind of sneak up and get a nice flank. You can get behind your enemy and then force them into either running into your stun or running into your team. The way you can function as the assassin player or as a tank player. It's important in fights to utilize your ultimate. Know when you just need to get out of jail by using your ultimate, and know when you can use your ultimate for damage. All right, here we are in game. So we're just going to talk about a couple of combos here, so a couple simple combos. So the first one we're going to talk about is just your EQ combo. So when you're doing your EQ combo, that's going to be your burst damage thing that you're going to be doing. Where are these things level? It's tripping me out. So a simplest way to land your Q is going to be to E forward, and as you're pressing your second E proc to go through, you press your Q and your Q will launch in front of you. It takes a little bit of time to get the timing right, and I might mess up the timing right here. This is the first take, so let's look at it real quick. So you E forward, and you'll see the indicator, and then you throw your Q forward, and you land it like that. So I'll show it again. You E forward, and as you're about to click your second E indicator, you throw your Q the exact direction of the enemy champion, and your Q and your E will apply at the same time, or about the same time, and it's the easiest and most consistent way to land the ability. So you go forward like this, and then you'll apply it like that. One more time. E forward, Q. Oh, I messed up. I threw it a little bit too late. That's okay. Right before you want to press the indicator is when you want to throw it. So E forward, Q, and then you apply it like that. The other way you can apply it is how I actually just showed it. You E forward, you do your second E, and then you throw your Q instantly from point blank range. So it looks kind of like this. And then you just apply it instantly from there. All right, so that's the EQ combo. That's going to be your main damaging setup. So the first part is going to be the most consistent way to land it. If you're not good at that timing at first, just throw it as soon as you land with your E. Okay, so the next thing we're going to show is properly throwing your W out. So your W indicator is pretty huge, and then you'll just go in and then apply that ability. I didn't throw my Q out there, but I was mainly just trying to show the W interaction. So you throw your W down. Maybe you can go and apply it and kind of sneak up on a lot of people. A lot of times that'll really trick people out. If they're about to walk into your W and you have your flash up, you can really trick them out with that. So if you're right here and they're like, oh, there's no way he's going to get in here. And then you get in there. You can actually trick a lot of people out with your flash if you know they're going to walk into it and you know they don't have your flash up and you need it in order to land. Okay, let's talk about how you actually gank people with your W and do your W setup. Then we'll talk about a little bit more combos. So I'm in a bot game, so this Cho'Gath isn't going to run away from me. But realistically, when you come in, you want to throw it in their path. So he sees me, and I throw it right here. And so normally he would walk back right there, right? But if he doesn't, then I apply my shield and I just kill him through like that. So you throw your W behind at their escape path. So you throw it at their escape path. And if your enemy, let's say your enemy bot lane's right here, they're not going to want to walk this way. So you throw it at their escape path, and either they're going to walk into your W. So either they're going to walk into this, and you're going to stun them, or they're going to have to walk around it. Either way, it's going to slow them down and make it easier for you to close the gap. Or they're going to walk out this way. They're going to have to take damage from your bot lane, and you just don't even have to commit forward. If you throw this out and they start walking that way, then you don't even have to commit forward, and you can walk back that way. You don't need your W in order to kill, and then I can just take them down from here. All right, now let's talk about if you're trailing on EKKO. So you're running away. So let me get my ghost just square on me. Okay, if I'm running away from an enemy, I can put my W on top of me and then ult into it. And if my enemy that I'm running away from is right there, I'll ult back, get the heal, get the shield, and I'll stun them. Or let's say my enemy isn't quite into the area where I'm able to stun them just yet, but I can get the shield and I can get all my health back, and just that enough is going to ensure that I kill my enemy. So I put my W behind me, I ult back, and my enemy's right here, and I'll fight him. Okay, cool. Let's talk about another couple combos with your E, because I skipped over a couple. So let's say you throw out your Q but it's not going to land. But but you want it to land on the pullback. So let's say I throw out my Q at this enemy. Whoops, I accidentally hit it. So I throw my Q at my enemy, but it's not going to hit. So I throw it right here. Then I can jump to the side and make it rip back into them. And then get the second part there. So I can get my slow applied by E into the side and position myself in a way that's going to hit my enemy. It's kind of weird to show on bots because it doesn't really like work. It doesn't really like show you. So I'm over here, and then I jump to the side to make sure it applies. And I can go in like that. It's kind of weird to show on bots, but it's strange. All right, let's talk about your Zhonya's combo. So let's say you're in a big chaotic team fight. I'm fighting all these guys over here, and then they're going to kill me. So I Zhonya's. It stuns them even while I'm in my Zhonya's right there. So my stun will still apply while I'm in my Zhonya's. So we'll show it one more time, and then you can combo your ult with it. So I'm in this big fight. I lost a bunch of health. I Zhonya's. And I ult onto him, and I do this big chunk of burst damage right there. It's going to be a pretty successful combo. All right, one more combo we're going to show is just using your proto belt to close the gap. So I'm jumping in, and then I can apply a large amount of burst damage with my proto belt. So just to close the gap, they won't expect the wreck. Oh, I'm not in his range, but then you get in their range, and then it'll sneak up on them a lot of times. So this is with the full combo. It'll get you in there. So you can see how all these items synergize with it in simple combos. All right, that's going to be it for this video, guys. There's some pretty simple combos, but really what it is getting used to playing EKKO and getting used to know when you need to use which combo and which one feels more consistent to you. So when you're doing your EQ stuff, just find out what feels more consistent. The most consistent one is going to be just your EQE combo, like this. But you might not just be good at timing that correctly. So if you're not good at timing that correctly, just do the standard E, second E, and then Q. So if you're not super good at doing the first part, just start with that one. And then start integrating your W into that combo. Just start integrating your W into that combo, and it'll start to feel better. All right, anyways, guys, that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I didn't think I was going to be able to record this one, but I was. So thank you guys so much. The support has been amazing. And I don't want to draw this video too long because it's already about 30 minutes or so, or 33 minutes or 35 minutes, something like that. Anyways, that's going to be it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye-bye. Bye. 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 Bye.